Hi everyone, my name is Felipa, and today is day 126 of my 365-day commitment to complete reading this Bible. And I start today on Psalm 37, where David contrasts the godly and the wicked. This is probably my favorite psalm so far. And I think it's just because David goes back and forth into essentially talking about how you don't need to worry yourself about what you're doing and what the wicked are doing, that everything is righteous in the end. God casts out his judgment. He sees what the wicked are doing. He sees who deserves abundance. And even the beginning of the psalm, it says, "Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. So shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily shall be fed." So it says, commit into God, delight into God, rest in God, cease from anger, and don't worry about the things that you don't need to worry about. God sees it, God has it. You don't need to worry about it. Really, really, really like this psalm a lot. Depart from evil, speak of wisdom, and really like this verse 37, mark the perfect man and behold the upright, for the end of that man is peace. So the wicked and the transgressors will be destroyed, but the perfect man and the one who is upright and righteous, his salvation is salvation itself, and the fact that he will be in peace and at peace. In Psalm 38, David appeals to God for mercy. He just talks about how he says here in part of verse 3, neither is there any rest in my bones because of my sin. So he talks about having sin. He talks about people who are against him. He constantly calls for the Lord to hear him, to take care of his adversaries, and to give him respite from how he feels. In verse 39, David places his hope in God, and he just basically says, I know that I pray unto you, Lord. I know that you're going to figure out who's vain, who's not. You're going to humble me, and you will give me peace and strength. In Psalm 40, David waits patiently on God, and he just basically talks about how God brought him out of clay and established him in life. And he talks about having righteousness and pleasing the Lord and making sure that others who do not follow God are going to be desolate and they will fail. But he recognizes he is poor and needy, and he recognizes that the Lord values him and sees some sort of redemption in him, regardless of how poor and a desolate of a soul he is, simply because he is willing to, be honest about his sins and be forthright about his shortcomings. In Psalm 41, David talks about God's care for the poor and how they will be taken care of and how the wicked will not perish. And this is the first part in the Bible that, at least in the King James Version, that I'm seeing in verse 13 here. So in Psalm 41, the words amen used. So I'm really curious to look up kind of like the meaning of amen, where it kind of stemmed from, why it started getting used here. And like I said, I'm fairly certain it wasn't used before. So it's interesting that we're now seeing amen used. Tomorrow is day 127 on the 5th of January. I start with Psalm 42. Thank you for listening.